Hi, my name is Miss Christy. I'm a teaching artist with the PACE program. We integrate art lessons with the school curriculum. We're coming to you today thanks to the Acadiana Center for the Arts, the nonprofit organization that manages the PACE program, and the Lafayette Parish school system in Lafayette, Louisiana. Today we are going to be talking about clocks. The only materials that you'll need are a piece of paper, a pencil, crayons, and a cup to use to create circles. Today we will be talking about clocks. Do you have clocks in your house? I'm sure you do. You probably have seen clocks with numbers, like maybe on the microwave or an alarm clock in your parents' room. Well, that's called a digital clock. Other clocks that have been around for a much longer time are dial clocks or analog clocks, and they have hands that go around and around. There's usually two hands on those kinds of clocks. Do you know how to read a clock? Well, if you don't, that's okay. We're going to talk today about those clocks and how to tell time. And we're also going to talk a little bit about clocks all over the world. So the only materials that you'll need for this art project are a piece of paper, a pencil to draw with, and then crayons to color in. We're going to need something to make a circle, so find a plastic cup that has a wider top than the bottom. I have one here. You can see that the top is wider than the bottom is. And this is what we'll be using to make our clock face. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold your piece of paper twice. You're going to fold it once lengthwise by joining up the two corners and folding it in half. And then you're going to fold it in half again, joining up the two corners to create a smaller rectangle. This helps me guide you through the project, and I'll be able to tell you where to draw your lines and shapes. So let's get started. You'll notice that it created two lines where the paper was folded. We're going to start in the middle by pointing, and then we're going to trace your finger down to about the middle of these two bottom sections. This is where you're going to draw your clock. First, you're going to draw the big circle and put that right in the middle. Can you see that that's in the middle? It helps if your cup is see-through because you'll be able to see where that is on your paper. So you're going to go all the way around. Make sure you hold your cup down tight. You might have to have a grown-up or a friend help you hold it down if you're having a little bit of trouble keeping it steady. Then you're going to flip it over and you're going to draw the smaller circle right in the middle. You'll look around each side of the cup and see that it's probably about a finger width distance all the way around. So you'll make sure that it's even all the way around. Hold it down tight or have someone help you. And then draw around the one side. Switch sides and draw around the other side. There's the inside of our clock. So what you'll do is you'll draw a little circle or a little dot right in the middle. And this is where the hands of our clock are going to come out of. Do you know what number is at the top of the clock? If you said 12, you're right. So write a 1, 2 right there on that line. The next number starts here, and all of our numbers go around what we call clockwise. Can you say clockwise? So we're going to write our numbers clockwise. The first number is number 1. Let's write that. Number 1. The second number is number 2. And what you'll do is you're going to use your finger and you're going to put it right there between the two. See how I did that there? I'm going to use my pinky because it's probably the same size as your pointer finger. So then you'll draw a 2. Then you'll put your finger behind the 2 and write a 3. And then you'll put your finger after the 3 and you'll write a 4. And remember, if you need to pause at any time, please do so and catch up. And then press play. So then you'll put your finger behind 4 and write a 5. And what this is doing is this is measuring the spaces in between each one. So do you know what number goes right at the bottom of the clock? If you said 6, you're right. 6 is right across from 12. Next, you'll put your finger there and write a 7. And remember, we're writing right on that middle line that we drew. Put your finger there behind the 7 and write an 8 on the line. Then you'll put a finger there, and what's across from 3? It's 9. So you'll write a 9. Then we'll measure with our finger again and write a 10. And then we'll measure with our finger and we'll write our last number there, 11, for 11 o'clock. So now we have all 12 numbers on our clock. But did you know we have 24 hours in a day? If we were to count from 12 and keep going 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 hours. The first half of the day and the second half of the day. So now our clock is almost done in the middle. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about Hickory Dickory Dock. Have you heard that nursery rhyme? I bet you have. Can you sing it with me? Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock. So we're going to draw our hands to look like 1 o'clock. Do you know how to do that? Well, there's a long hand and a short hand. And the short hand is the hour hand. And it's only a short little line pointing to the 1. I'm going to draw a little arrow pointing to the 1. Now, if it's 1 o'clock, what does the minute hand or the long hand point to? If you said the 12, you're right. It points to the 12. So you're going to draw a longer line pointing to the 12. There! There's our Hickory Dickory Dock clock. But now let's turn it into an alarm clock. So the next step is we're going to give it some feet. So we're going to draw 2 little triangles at the bottom. 1, 2. You see that? It has little feet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to give it the thing that rings a bell. Have you ever seen an alarm clock with the bells? Well, I have one here in this picture. And when the clock reaches the time that you set for it to go off, it rings ding, 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 by hitting those 2 bells with a little hammer. So we're going to draw one little line above the 12, and then we're going to put a small rectangle on that line. It's going to look a little bit like a T. You can color that in if you want to. Next, let's draw the bells. We're going to draw 2 more lines, one coming from where the 1 o'clock is and one coming from where the 11 o'clock is. And then we're going to draw the bells. Watch me first and then you try. I'm going to draw 2 straight diagonal lines. One that goes this way and one that goes this way. Can you do that? 2 diagonal straight lines. Now watch me do 2 curved lines on top of those. Kind of like a rainbow line. There and there. Can you see that? There's my 2 bells. So when the clock reaches 1, it's going to go ding, 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 ding. And probably scare the little mouse. So let's draw a mouse. This mouse is going to be holding the alarm clock. So we're going to draw a little handle for him to hold. At the top, let's put 2 little circles. And then the handle is going to go from one side to the other. Watch me first and then you try. It's going to go up and across and down. And then you're going to double it up. Up, across, and then down. And this is the handle for our clock. Now, let's draw our mouse. Our mouse is going to have big ears and a cute little nose. The first shape we're going to draw is a circle. Everything in nature is made of shapes. If you look around, you'll notice your head is kind of an oval. The middle of your hand looks a little like a square. So we're going to draw a kind of circle or a little bit of a roundish oval right here. We're going to be coloring over this. So at first I felt like mine needed to be more round. So I went ahead and made it a little bit bigger. Remember, the only mistake you can make is not making art at all. So I made my shape just a little bit bigger. And I'll erase the lines. That's why artists often draw with a pencil first. They want to get the idea or the sketch of their picture first before they put the color in. So the next thing we're going to do is add the ears. And mice have really big ears. So I'm going to do the left ear and the right ear. After that, I'm going to draw 2 little eyes. Watch me first and then you try. They're tiny little eyes that are far apart on its face and it's closer to their ears. And they're going to be kind of like little teardrops or little ovals. Put a little circle on the inside. And then you can color those in with your pencil or you can color them in with crayon when we're done. Now we're going to do a little nose and it just looks like a little U. When you're done with that, you're going to put a line under his nose and either you can give him a smile, which I'm going to do, or any kind of expression that you want. If you make him a sad face, you can do that too. No one likes to get up early in the morning. And maybe he woke up way too early. Or mine is really happy because he got to sleep late. So the next part is to draw the body of our mouse. And it's a very simple shape. Watch me first and then you try. I'm going to start right here and I'm going to go down through the clock and around and stop on this side. Can you do that? One long curved line down to about the middle of the clock somewhere and then stop. And then right on the other side, you're going to draw another line up past the handle of the clock to where his neck would be, or her neck. Next, you're going to draw in some little hands. Right here, the little mouse is holding the handle of the clock. So we're going to put in some little oval shapes for its fingers. After you do that, you're going to erase the handle where his fingers are. And it makes it look like he's holding on to this busy alarm clock. There. So the last thing we're going to do, we're going to give him a little tail. So that tail can curl any way you want it to. I'm going to draw mine to be a little curled tail, just like that. We're going to put a table underneath this guy. So to put a table there, you're going to draw two diagonal lines coming from out on the outside of your paper. You're going to go diagonal up and diagonal up. If it goes through the tail, just erase where you drew it. And then you're going to go across and behind the mouse. You see that? It looks like it's on a table. So now you can create a pattern on your table. I'm going to create a little bit of a striped pattern. If you want to put some other shapes in your pattern, you can. Like you can put in a wavy line between each one. And it just makes it look like there's a tablecloth. All right, now your mouse is ready to color. I have here a special box of crayons. They're metallic crayons, and I thought I would use that for my cute little mouse. I'm going to make my clock some darker colors like purple and blue. I'm going to start by tracing the outline of my clock in purple. Do all of my pencil lines that I drew in purple. And as we're coloring the clock, I wanted to talk to you about some different kinds of clocks you might know of, or might be that you've never heard of them. Like a grandfather clock. Grandfather clocks are great big tall clocks that chime and sound like, have a really big sound like bong, bong, bong. And alarm clocks, like the one we've drawn here, make a really loud bell sound. Ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. But what about a cuckoo clock? Have you ever seen a cuckoo clock? Well, a cuckoo clock has a little bird that pops out whenever it gets to the time on the hour. Have you ever heard of someone say on the hour? Well, that's at 1 o'clock, just like with this one. It would make one big sound, or with the cuckoo clock, it would just go cuckoo just one time. But if it was 7 times, it would cuckoo 7 times. Can you cuckoo 7 times? Go ahead. Could you imagine having one of those in your house? There are other kinds of clocks that are really big. A lot of clocks that you hear in the town where you live, like in Lafayette, might be from a church. And that's actually where the song Hickory Dickory Dock came from. You can see in this picture, there's a beautiful blue clock inside of this church. And several hundred years ago, this clock was working, and there was a small hole here in the bottom of the door for the church cat to chase the mice out of the clock room. You can see in this picture that there's even a little cat poking its head out. I wonder if it's still chasing mice to this day. There are other clocks that you may have heard of, like Big Ben in England. And it has a clock on 4 different sides. I wonder what colors you're painting your clock. So I'm going to follow around this middle line that I drew, and I'm going to just color in blue in just that area. But I'm going to leave the inside for a different color. So now I'm filling in the middle with a different color. I like using lots of colors, and I always encourage my students to blend their colors. So I think I'm going to blend my kind of pinkish orange with a little bit of yellow gold in the middle. Maybe to look like the morning sky. I think I'm going to make my mouse a little bit orange and brown. And I also have here a red. So you can go ahead and trace the outline if you want to. I'm going to also put a different color on the inside of his ears or her ears. If you need to press pause, go ahead and catch up and then press play. I'm going to use a black crayon to color its eyes. I'm going to leave that little space, that little tiny circle that I drew inside of the eyes. I'm going to leave that white to make it look like the light is reflecting off of the mouse's shiny little eyes. I'm going to go ahead and outline its little nose in black, just so it'll stand out. I'm going to do the same thing with the hands of my clock and the numbers, so it'll be easier to see those numbers. So we have routines in our day, or there are certain times that we do things every day, like the time we wake up and the time we go to bed, the times that we eat our meals like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might hear your mom or dad say, "Come on, it's time to go." So what does that mean when they say that? Well, that is why we started to count time or keep track of time, was that people wanted to organize their day. They wanted to make sure that they were doing things when they were supposed to. So clocks actually began thousands of years ago when people wanted to become more organized about their time of day when they eat or study or go to church. They wanted to make sure that they were doing things when they were supposed to. So they had ancient clocks called sundials. Have you ever seen a sundial before? Well, you can see in these pictures that in a sundial, a shadow is created by this thing that sticks up that creates a shadow. The part of that sundial that creates the shadow is called a gnomon. And it would create a shadow only when the sun was out. So people had to figure out other ways to count time or the passing of time. So they created other kinds of clocks. You can see here that this is a water clock, and it had a little hole in it that as the water would drip, it would drip at a very predictable or regular pace. So they would know how much time had passed based on how much water had dripped. It's the same thing with an hourglass that has sand inside of it. It was a much later that people figured out how to make mechanical clocks. So I'm going to color the mouse's body that's behind the clock. The clock handle is going to be purple too. But I'm not going to color where its hands are or its little paw that's holding the handle. I'm going to color it the same color as the mouse, but maybe a little lighter to show that that's its hands. I'm going to blend these colors. So you go ahead and keep coloring. If you need to press pause, go ahead. I'm going to fill in my mouse. So I've colored in my mouse and my clock, and now I'm going to work on the tablecloth. I've decided to use a little bit of green and a little bit of blue, and so what I'm going to do is just draw in my lines that I drew with one color. And you do the same, just color your pattern. If you decided to do shapes in your pattern, remember you're going to follow that pattern all the way across your table. Alright, so I have those green stripes. Now I'm going to come back with a different blue from the one that I used in my clock. And I'm going to draw in my wavy lines. And again, the only thing this does is it makes it look like your mouse is sitting on a table that has a pattern. And it gives it depth. Can you say that? Depth. The other thing that can create depth is what we call overlap. So the mouse is behind the clock and the tablecloth is behind the mouse behind him. So what else is behind him? Well, the room that they are in. So I'm actually going to use some of these colors to create the walls behind him. And the way that you should do that is find that middle line, that folded middle line, and go ahead and draw a straight line behind the mouse's ear. Don't go over his ear, and draw a straight line down to that line. Then you're going to draw a line that goes over to the end of the page. Then over here, you're going to draw another vertical line. That's a line that goes up and down and stop when you get to that folded line and go over to the other side of the page. So here I've created a kind of doorway. And you can color those in any color you want. I'm going to go ahead and color it in, and you can do the same thing. If you wanted to keep going and draw more details into that background, you could draw a diagonal line that goes up and then over. Go behind the mouse to this line. So what we've done is we've created an extra part of that room. You see this little point here? You would draw a straight line up and stop when you get to the mouse. Trace the line up straight and stop. And so what you've created is some walls with these lines behind him, and you can color those in. I'm actually going to use some yellow, and I'm going to color some of those walls yellow. I'm going to color that one yellow, and I'm going to color this one yellow. But I think our mouse lives in a very brightly colored house. So I'm going to do these two walls a different color. Let me see. How about a little bit of that turquoise color? So again, behind the mouse's ear, you can trace around it in case you're worried about coloring through it, and then just trace that shape. Now I think I'm going to do this back wall something totally different. What color do you think I should do that? I was thinking maybe green, because I don't have enough green in my picture, and my mom's favorite color is green. So again, behind the mouse, don't color green over your mouse, color green around your mouse. Or whatever color you choose. If you want to color just one big solid color behind your mouse, that's okay too. But what I did here was I created depth. I created a room behind our mouse. There. This would be the floor. So what color should that floor be? I think a light color would be good. So I have here a color called Gold Fusion. And again, this was a small color box. You might have a lot more colors to play with. So I'm going to go ahead and color the floor, and that's under the table and around the mouse. So it's around the table and around the mouse. And I'm coloring really fast, but if you need to pause and press play, go ahead. I always encourage my own kids and my students, color the whole page. Don't let there be any more paper showing unless you did that on purpose. Like I left white in the tablecloth because maybe the tablecloth is white, green, and blue. All right. There's my colorful room with my happy mouse and his alarm clock. So what color did you do your clock? I wish I could see everyone's projects. Thank you so much for joining me for this art lesson. We will be posting art lessons every day at 10 a.m. on the Acadiana Center for the Arts YouTube channel, and these lessons will be airing at 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on the Acadiana Open channel each day. That's channel 16 for Cox and channel 4 for LUS. Our lessons are visual arts and creative movement. If you're interested in private lessons with me, you can contact me through my website and email me. My website is lushceramics.com, lushceramics.com. Please try to make art every day.